Greetings, everyone. Welcome to CRWS discussion slash study on race Cold War, the power of words, images, and symbols on the Black psyche by Kyrie and Ahero. We are covering pages 98 through 108. I'd like to view this as an attempted counter-racist Sunday service. Instead of spending so much time and energy what is called church, Black people should be understanding and attempting to counter racism and white supremacy with our thought, speech, and action. And this is our effort to do so. I thank the panel for being here, and surely everyone brought constructive notes to share this evening. Getting started, this book is epically constructive. I'm gonna get us started by reading off the code word crack house, which has been used traditionally by racist men and racist women to just sabotage the image and perpetuate a incorrect image of Black people globally. So I'm just going to start by reading the second paragraph because this is very constructive, and I didn't put these two together prior to reading this text. The house word is the symbol of a powerful bonding and maternal forces. It evokes feelings of security. It is the center of existence and a family line. The house is a spiritual infrastructure that binds people and community together in order to pass on the culture and social lineage. The word crack means a fracture, fault line, or a small opening. Traditionally, the use of the word crack in reference to a house would be to point out that there is a crack in the door or the roof or the basement of the house. One might say that the house has a crack in the foundation or has many cracks in other areas. However, to use it in any other context with the word house did not fit with the explosion of the cooked cocaine epidemic. The word crack took on a new and social political meaning. And he goes on to say that the word crack comes from the crackling sound made during the process of cooking cocaine. So yeah, it's just really incredible. It reminds me of that little diagram in ISIS papers that like everything is connected. Because I just thought crack house was just a racial slur, racial code word to describe a place where dope, aka crack, is sold and distributed. But it actually has another meaning, which I just read about how the faulty foundation and inside a home and whatnot. And it just goes to show how racist men and racist women think. They have deliberately cracked the existence and crack the existence of non-white people, especially Black people. They've created a huge fracture amongst us where we don't have any sort of foundation to understand what is happening on planet Earth. We just have been totally led to confusion, and we use these words, perpetuate these words in area 3 entertainment so often, but we don't know that we are just regurgitating the mindsets and helping racist men and racist women to continue to mistreat us with their own thought, speech, and action. So it's really just incredible how racist men and racist women have used these words, and how we have me in particular, am just now taking notice and beginning to realize that, wow, all of these terms. I'm going to go ahead and read the final paragraph from the code word crack house. The term crack house was created to exclusively identify drugs with Black people. If this is not a true statement, why are the terms for drug houses What are the terms for drug houses in the white community? Where are the coke or cocaine houses, marijuana or weed houses, and crank houses? The term crack house was designed purely as racial propaganda. There are thousands of white households in the cities, suburbs, and rural areas where the sale and use of legal drugs takes place. Racial labels are not attached to the entire social and cultural fabric of these communities. Their neighborhoods and family lines have not been besmirched by these horrible stigmas. That's correct. I've never seen a video of race soldiers knocking down doors in North Hollywood and Brentwood. I've never seen that happening. You don't see so-called crack houses in these areas, and because that's by design. You know, as Gary Webb said, white people flooded black neighborhoods with these chemical warfare known as crack and on various other drugs, and then they allowed the race soldiers to go in and so-called clean up the streets with their chemical warfare that they put there themselves. So a stellar example of the sabotage that is happening, that has happened against non-white people, should be motivating us to begin to speak the truth in regarding these matters, because Black people don't have access to producing crack. They were just given the item to do so by white people to sabotage our existence and to justify us being placed in greater confinement at just despicable rates. And that's because white supremacy is a huge trap, and we are all caught in it. And it's our duty to destroy the trap by using thought, speech, and action. Yeah, like it's just incredible that there's so many code words here: crack dealer, crack addict, crackhead, cocaine and junkie, and all of these in the racist lexicon mean Black people are used to describe Black people. And it's just an example of the assault that we are under 24/7 by racist men and racist women. I'll meet my line there, see if folks want to chime in and share some of their notes. So crack dealer, I'm going to read all of these because I think they're very short and they're.
Wait a minute. I
Oh,
got something to say.
okay.
Um, yeah, so about the crack house. I used to watch a show, a program by the name Intervention, and I'm just pointing out the contrast between the two. So in intervention, they would follow these drug addicts, meth, cocaine, crack, mostly white, and I I can't recall them calling where they reside or anywhere that they used to go to pick up drugs or buy drugs, calling them crack houses. But in the news, you'll always see it in reference to Black people, like what the book is explaining. And I think that the program was also to program us to be sympathetic to these white people who are on drugs, meth, crack, cocaine, oxycontin, pills, and everything. And yeah, I just wanted to point that out. That no, I don't remember. I can't recall them calling the houses where these people reside as crack houses.
It reminds me, I had read a portion of Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, and she was pointing out how most Black people who get certain, well, really all drug charges. Right now. Yes, most Black people that get drug charges are usually also charged with selling narcotics within 1,000 feet of a school. Um, most crack houses are close to a school, so that was very interesting.
Yeah, just an example of just sophisticated design that white racist men and racist women have set up. Yeah, I'm familiar with existing in an environment with so-called crack houses, and yeah, for sure there was a school right down the street. So and they use this to enhance. They like to enhance the charges to keep Black people in greater confinement for longer. But from what I've seen, what I've experienced, that if you're a white person and you are caught with like so-called drugs and crack, heroin, and meth, you know, it's very easy for you to get put in a program or something like that. But if you're a Black person and you are a victim of being exposed to the chemical warfare known as crack, they don't give a damn. They'll still put you in greater confinement, even if you really need help and you know, not being a victim of crack. You know, so it's just really telling that like white people are very, 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 very serious about their war they are waging against us, and we have to we just really have to be in the know of how they use these words, these terms to justify the torment that they wage against us, because putting us in greater confinement is a form of torment. And it just has been working so well for so long. It's because we refuse to understand and refuse to learn about the reality of our existence, and that needs to change. So I'm gonna read these next terms. Crack dealer, all these are from page 99. Crack dealer, this is a code phrase for a Black person involved in the sale of illegal chemicals, aka drugs. The term has come to present a person in the community who is involved in the sale of drugs in the area. Again, Black people don't have any such community, whatever that is. And again, the biggest drug pushers on the planet are racist men and racist women. Check out drugs as a weapon against us. We did a study on that. You can find it on one of the playlists that we have on the channel. Yeah. Crack addict, this is a code. This code means a Black victim of a targeted and directed chemical poisoning conspiracy. I think this is a great definition for what has happened. A Black victim of a targeted and directed chemical poisoning conspiracy. That's exactly what flooding Black people's environments with drugs is. It's chemical warfare 101. You know, chemical warfare doesn't have to be white people dropping off white phosphorus in some sort of village. It could be as easy as flooding Black areas with deadly foods and or deadly drugs, which is what they've been doing since I've been on this planet. And crackhead, this is a code for a Black person destroyed by chemical poisoning. It is a very dangerous term that gained wide acceptance among Black people. I grew up, you know, making fun, jokingly calling other Black people crackheads, you know, for entertainment. And it's just example of the perfect programming white people have managed to do on us. Welcome to the chat, Mr. or Miss Still Learning. Any comments? Anyone would like to share their some notes or comment on what was read?
Yeah, I wanted to make a quick comment because even when, to add on to what Helen B mentioned, growing up, when I heard the term, besides like crack baby, that's the only term that I was like, oh, Black people. Because that was, again, like you mentioned, like something as a joke. People were laughing about that. But when I thought of like a crack house or someone like tweaking out or anything that had to do like specifically with crack, I thought of white people. And I don't know if it's because of movies or just me not seeing like visual, seeing people do crack that are Black, other than like, and then when I see on the streets like white people tweaked out, I always think like, oh, they're on drugs, like, oh, this. So it was very interesting reading this segment, especially where it's like, oh, crack house. What was the other one? I have my book here. It says heroin addict, things like that. Those are the words I use to like signify like, oh, someone white. But it's interesting to read these sections and be like, oh, when they use these terms, obviously is to say that this person is Black or this is within the Black community.
Very interesting. I don't know why that term should be in here, crack baby, because that's another one that is used to perpetuate the image of just even babies being throwaway creatures in the system of white supremacy. Very, very interesting. Anyone? Any more comments, statements?
Yes, I just came across the Merriam-Webster's definition for a crack baby, which is an infant typically born prematurely with a condition caused by the excessive consumption of crack cocaine by the mother during pregnancy and characterized by malformations and learning disabilities. Right on top of the next word, crack-brained, which is so senseless or unreasonable as to seem insane or crazy. Lots of code words by the white supremacists surrounded by crack.
Yep. And I said that we did crack baby. It probably is in this text. We probably covered it on the earlier broadcast because it seems like it would be in this text as well. That the junkie from page 100. Junkie is an old label from the 1950s and 60s and evolves from the term heroin junkie. The word is interesting because of the use of junk as the catchphrase. It was associated with Blacks with needles in their arms and some dark alleys. The word junk is related to the word garbage that is related to the word trash. So I grew up hearing this term junkie and I just thought it meant druggie. But as we understand like words and the various combinations that are strung together, we should be able to like decode as he just did here. Junkie. Not once did I associate a junkie with being like a trash person, like junk, something useless. But this is what white people. This is what it literally means. You know, if you are a Black junkie, then you are like considered junk in this so-called society. And what happens to junk? It's thrown away. It's destroyed. It's discarded. So calling a bunch of victims of racism junkies for being victims of chemical warfare is right on cue with how they want to mistreat us and how they want to keep us dominated forever. This is a word that I've always associated with white people because heroin, from my perspective, has always been associated with white people. And maybe that movie Trainspotting has something to do with it, which is just a movie about a bunch of white people who are called junkies in that film and just run around trying to get the next heroin high. And yeah, but again, all of these phrases, these code words have been, when we see them being used and there's white people on the screen, we should not be confused because the white supremacists are always winking at each other and they're understanding that we're actually talking about Black people when we say junkie or substance abuser, crackhead, where it's always talking about Black people. They may put a white person on the screen to confuse us or to not just be overtly racist, but at the end of the day, they know who they're directing these word assaults at, and it's definitely Black people.
You know, it's really interesting. I associated junkie with white people as well. Junkie and cocaine, but crack with non-white people. But crack and cocaine are the same thing. They're just made differently, but it's the same thing. So yeah, that's really interesting. And think about movies and who do you see doing cocaine, and who do you see doing crack? That also has something to do with the programming with us. And wow, that's really interesting. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, there's cocaine is also one of the code words here. I'll just go ahead and read it from page 100. This code word has come to mean black people. The word began as a reference to rich white drug users. However, with the coming of crack cocaine, the language and images have shifted. The cocaine abusers are now classified as black, and I think Whitney Houston, one of her famous stunts were being a victim of cocaine, becoming a coke addict, and saying things like crack is for poor people, something like that. But yeah, I remember cocaine being associated with white people as well, especially the movie Scarface. And there's tons of movies where what's some with Pulp Fiction, white women sniffing coke, ODs on it. So yeah, American Psycho, they also do coke in that movie, so cocaine. So yeah, again, just shows you how racist man and racist woman will refine themselves and their words to always bring the most harm and most mistreatment to non-white people, because yeah, Whitney Houston and her drug habits got a lot of publicity. I know more about that than I do about her being one of the top selling artists, so-called artists that has ever came to this planet. But anywho, any more comments before I continue with my notes?
I knew this white guy. He was a lawyer, and he became addicted to cocaine. So when he went to a doctor friend who was also white of his, when he told him like, "Oh, I think I'm addicted to cocaine. Like, what can I do?" And the doctor told him, this is years ago, and the doctor told him, "Oh, no, no, that's fine. Cocaine is fine. Just as long as you don't do crack, you'll be all right." And I'm like, what? What? Like, but this is the 80s, but still like late 80s, early 90s, but still like, what? Oh, yeah, just had to share that.
Doesn't get any better than tacky. Wow. So on page 100, gangs. The use of this word began with the Italian and Jewish mobsters of the early 1900s. They were real gangs organized to gain economic and political power. They were involved in murderous and almost genocidal activities. Gangs controlled politicians, managed police departments, owned all the land in the area, and enforced their rule of law. This is the real definition of a gang. Meyer Lansky was a gang member, and Fred Costello was a gang member. I guess these are powerful white people, these names. But yeah, the biggest gang on the planet is racist man and racist woman and racist child. They run this planet. They own all the land. They control all so-called politicians and manage the police department. So yeah, thinking that a black person or a so-called Latino person wearing various colors or tagging up the neighborhood is a gang. No, that is a highly victimized, retarded person who has been led to believe that they're in a gang, but though they're really just pitiful victims who have absolutely no power, which is why they probably spend their times, graffitiing, which is like a version of crayoning on the wall. It has absolutely no meaning outside of ghetto glorification. So we have to stop believing that black people are in gangs. They are not. They have been just insanely victimized and just I think it describes and explains why we literally decorate ourselves with these so-called gang tattoos. It's like getting a crayon or a marker and playing with it, but it's been taken to the extreme with this ghetto glorification and this programming. But yeah, I don't want to hear any more talk about a black gang or a Latino gang or gangs taking over the streets because they don't have the power to do anything besides harm one another. They take that sort of behavior around white people, it gets stopped real fast, which is tell us that there's no such thing as gangs that involve black people. Simply um, groups of victims who are attempting to be destructive because that's how they've been programmed. The biggest gang is racist man, racist woman, and racist child, and those people are always white, always white.
Going
Comment.
back to the story I just told, I didn't realize until reading this book that in that in the story that actually that was code. The reason why the doctor told him that, oh, just as long as you don't do crack is because crack is associated to non-white people, black people. So that's why he was telling them, oh, it's okay. Oh, coke is okay because that's something that we do, meaning white people. Um, and what was just read about gangs and Maya Lansky was a gang member. I used to watch a lot of so-called well gangster movies, and there was a very popular TV show by the name of Boardwalk Empire, and they mentioned Maya Lansky a lot, and they try to make him throughout the years and all the movies and TV shows, they try to make him seem like, oh, he was a thinker, he was a businessman, he wasn't gangster. Like they always try to push that narrative, and I'm like, oh, I see now why after reading this book.
Yep, it makes a lot of sense. And that show, I haven't seen it, but it's one of those shows that is highly celebrated simply because it shows the true gangsters, which are white people. Go ahead, Ray.
Yes, I just wanted to read a bit. I don't know if anyone knew of this, but Coca-Cola, Wilson Moment, at one time contained cocaine. Scientific research that Coca-Cola's history has been well documented. The drink was invented in 1885 by John Pemberton, a pharmacist from Atlanta, Georgia, who made the original formula in his backyard. Pemberton's recipe contained cocaine in the form of an extract of the coca leaf, which inspired the coca part of the beverage's name. The cola comes from the cola nut. When Coca Cola was invented, cocaine was legal and a common ingredient in medicines. People thought it was safe to use in small amounts. So, Miss B, that may be why that white man told the other that it was okay to be addicted to cocaine and not crack.
Good point. Good point.
Agreed. Yeah, and just Coca-Cola, just one hell of a wealthy moment. Putting all that dark substance in one body to feel good is just white supremacy 101. They need those dark substances in their bodies. I suspect maybe an error. Maybe it's just so retarded that I'm just thinking outlandishly. But continuing, so there's a ton here. The NBA. This is probably this is so desperately needed information for Black people who are heavily into sports to know. I've never been into sports, never cared for this nonsense because I've always thought it was silly, stupid, and pitiful. And lo and behold, it is, and it has just been used as another avenue to present Black people as mindless, dribbling ball monsters, and it makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to read a couple of passages from the code word NBA. But the paragraph above what I'm going to read talks about how when Black people were allowed to enter the NBA, they changed the games. White people, when they were doing it, they were seen as more methodical and mechanical and lacked spontaneity. When Black people came in, it totally changed the game, making it more entertainment and more flashy and whatnot. And so from page 101, it says the conversion to a black style was accelerated by the American Basketball Association. The ABA played a different style of basketball that was high flying, open court, and more entertaining. This kind of basketball was called street ball or decoded nigger ball. The ABA featured a high wire act of great superstars Julius, Dr. Irving. The ABA finally merged with the NBA, and a new kind of professional basketball came into being. And it goes on to list a number of celebrated black males who are celebrated because they put balls and nets really, really well. Again, please buy this book, Race Cold War, to get all the information that I am not covering. So from page 104, I think this is really, really interesting. Again, referring to the NBA. The symbolic racial connection between the dark-skinned Godzilla monster dribbling basketballs in Madison Square Garden, home of the Knicks, is inescapable. The final scene in the movie showed thousands of 7-foot Godzilla monsters being duplicated and taking over Madison Square Garden. And decoded language, they were taking over New York, the financial capital. If not stopped, would take over the rest of the white world. This was thinly disguised as code for comparing black men to dark colored monsters and to stopping the dark menace. There were two, maybe more noticeable examples linking the Godzilla monsters to the black male athlete. NBA superstar Dennis Rodman was called Godzilla, further cementing the perceptual bond between the between the dark-skinned monsters and urban black male. I used to watch this movie all the time, Godzilla, and I did not know it was coded, so racially coded. But yeah, this referring and comparing and depicting black males as monsters, King Kong, Godzilla, has a long track record. They also used to call Shaqzilla, and according to Kyrie and the Herald, he was also referred to as a big black gorilla. And white people were getting just tired of so many Negroes, black males coming into the NBA that they started to go and recruit non-black people to compete with them, which is where Yao Ming came from. He was recruited from one of so-called America's so-called enemies, communist China, all in an effort to sort of diminish or stop the black male dominance in the sports. But can't happen. Wherever black people are allowed to be their best, they will just dominate, because that is I suspect the power of melanin, the thing that is the reason we are classified as black. Yeah, really, really telling. But this movie, Godzilla, from when did it come out? It's the one that came out in the early 2000s with the guy from Ferris Bueller Day Off, where yeah, these dark dinosaur creatures are literally running amok, and it's a one of the main issues in that movie is that Godzilla can now lay eggs. You know, she can now procreate and create more little monsters, and that is white supremacy 101. They want to diminish or destroy the reproduction of black people, strong, constructive black people, which is why they have in all 9 areas of people activity, they have this effort to retard us in every single area. Because if we're going to be born, we're damn sure not going to be born constructively. We're going to be born confused, stupid, and silly, which is what they want. And many of us tragically are, because we do not have the foundational understanding of white supremacy, what it is and how it works. Super, super telling. A lot can be learned from just this NBA nonsense, and how movies have been made to depict basketball players, but and no one knows. No one probably knew. I didn't know that Godzilla was that 2000 and whatever Godzilla movie was referencing to literally basketball players. But according to Kyrie and
Yeah. Peaceful greetings. Sorry I'm late. I've been listening. I haven't really been listening, so apologies if I repeat anything that's been said. But on the NBA, reading this whole section, from page 100 to 104, I really got Urugu vibes the entire time. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. From from the white people kind of admitting like, our style of basketball is pretty boring. We need some color in it. Even, we need some color. We need some injection. We need people to come in and make it lively for us. Establishing that connection that we need these other people to motivate ourselves and to have goals, I guess you could say. That's on page 101, where they're talking about the merging of the NBA and the ABA. We need these Black people to make our stuff exciting, because without them, we are uncultured, we're boring, we just don't have anything to live for. That's what I was getting from that. And then, kind of 102, when he starts to kind of define eras, and he talks about when Larry Bird started to come in. That's when it's confirmed for me, that this, basketball, these sports aren't exciting for them unless there's a racial element. I mean, racism, races are always the context of everything, right? Race always has something to do with it. So it wasn't until, Larry Bird came in, pretty much it coming into it like almost a Black dominated league at that time. And, he's coming in representing the white people. He's going up against Magic Johnson, the person who's supposed to be representing the non-whites. Where he says his arrival set the stage for a battle. I'm on 102. His arrival set the stage for a battle of racial supremacy on the hardwood floor. The game of basketball would become more than just a game of shooting, speed, and team play. It would become the worldwide setting for a racial showdown. So, right there, we need the others to motivate ourselves. If there isn't this racial kind of pretense, we don't want anything to do with it. If there's no opportunity to show us dominating these non-white people, we don't want anything to do with it. Then he goes on to talk about at the end, 102 lower down, where he says Larry Bird in the symbolic sense became the white knight that was sent to restore white pride and defeat the dark invaders. It's like, where do white people come up with this kind of nonsense? Like we're just playing sports, or they're just playing sports, but ball games, symbolism, it's all over the place. They can't take it. They can't take that, a non-white person, or especially a Black person, can dominate them in an area, right? So for them, Larry Bird was going out and he was going to defeat the dark invaders, whatever that means. What that means. Then he goes on to talk about Michael Jordan and then the era of Michael Jordan. And one thing was kind of like confusing for me a little bit about the Michael Jordan segment, where he said, this is on the bottom of the paragraph, top of 103, where he says, this is why his demeanor on the court was so controlled and passive. He could not be viewed as a threat. After, talking about how Michael Jordan was the guy that all the white women wanted to sleep with, he became a sex symbol, with the way he was playing. I didn't even know that whole bit about his shorts. That didn't even occur to me. But that's what I kind of like was kind of confusing to me. I don't know really what he meant by that his demeanor on the court was controlled and passive. Maybe that was before my time, so I don't know that much about it. And then moving into another era where they start to brighten up the NBA. We got more white people, white players, or even in some cases brighter mulattoes coming in. Like Alonzo Balls and whatnot coming in and starting to play and dominate the game, and that's what brings larger white audiences to the NBA. You know, that's another thing. I think that Black people are always dominating. So that's just another point. That one too is a little weird to me, but overall, this whole NBA concept for me was just, it gave me Urugu vibes. You know, I definitely felt like that the white people who own play in the NBA definitely needed the cultural other, the Black people, to come in and motivate them, because without them, they would have no motivation to succeed in those arenas.
Thank you. Thank you. What you said reminds me of how they're still wanting the dark skinned Black males out of the picture regarding NBA. They still are trying to remove Black males who are dark skinned in that field. And I saw like a clip a long time ago with just a bunch of bunch of Black people playing basketball, but they were all light skinned, all very, very light skinned. It reminds me of Destruction of Black Civilization, how they will use very light skinned Black people who have a greater allegiance to the system of white supremacy than their true Black selves. And yeah, so I think that's what they're ramping up. Like Stephen Curry, it's just the beginning. They will definitely eventually flood the NBA area with all these light-skinned Black males who don't care about solving the problem. Not saying that the dark-skinned ones do, but the light-skinned ones will just destruction of Black civilization moment. Just how those they use half Black and half white people to literally destroy and topple ancient Black civilization. That's how they will go about removing dark-skinned Black males from basketball, because they're sick of the LeBrons. You know, they don't want any more LeBron. They don't want any more Black billionaire Black players who think they could talk about racism, white supremacy. So that's where I think they're going with this. Using half white, half Black people to dribble the balls for their entertainment, because they're less of a danger to white supremacy. Because it's been said, and I've noticed, that if you are half white and half Black, you will have a greater allegiance to your white masters than your fellow victims, and that is by design.
I think another reason that a lot of the players are half Black, half white is because we're at the next generation of basketball where a lot of people's kids are now basketball players, and a lot of those people had kids with white women. So they're just like the next generation of those people's kids are just half Black, half white. So that's very interesting. But something that I was thinking about too was when you were talking about, when you were reading the segment where he talks about a comparison to Godzilla, I remember Joe Rogan saying something like, he said something like the perfect human would have a Black body and a white man's mind. And I just thought that that was really telling. And it reminds me of what the whole idea of the NBA is. It's almost like these players who are supposed to just, you know how they always say, like, just play. I don't want to hear you talk, just play. It's like they're just supposed to be these worker slaves who just play, and you give them a lot of money but no freedom, and they have injuries and they're not able to like do much after 35 or so. I just think it's really interesting. And another thing that was interesting about the formation of like the NBA with the ABA is it's really similar to baseball, because I know like we're supposed to learn about Jackie Robinson when we're really young, but he was actually kind of like if you think about it in terms of like counter racism, he actually did a lot of harm to Black people, because there was a really successful Negro League, and that was actually more successful than like the white baseball leagues. And it wasn't until Jackie Robinson, who wasn't actually even the best Black player, he was just the one who wanted to, play with white people. It wasn't until he wanted to integrate and push for that this idea of Black people have to like integrate into the white baseball teams, which basically caused the destruction of the Negro League. So I just think the whole thing is really interesting. It reminds me of what Quaku was saying, that they literally like can't really have sports unless they see Black people in them. And also, sorry to go on, but it reminds me of when people talk about college basketball players, it's always about Black college basketball players who want to get paid. And they're always telling them like, oh, you should just be happy that you have this opportunity, which I think is kind of like coded too. With like, you're the one watching them. They're your entertainment. Why is this an opportunity for them? They're working and yet they can't even get paid for that work. And so a lot of them are doing all of this like free labor. It's very interesting.
Yeah, the whole field harkens back to slavery. Greetings, evolutionists for justice. What you said, I have to read this clip because it goes hand in hand with what you mentioned. And but before I do that, I just like to point out, Drinkwater said 99% of blacks already have Black bodies and white minds, and I think that's 100% accurate. In regards to that Joe Rogan quote, I wish I could find that because that's really, really telling of how they would like this planet to be to be. So this is from page 101. It says, regardless of these moves, all of the physical play and gamesmanship of the NBA are still tied to performance, activity, and style of the Black athlete. The highest paid and the most publicized stars in sports are the Black athletes in the NBA. College and professional basketball is a Black game. Black athletes are groomed to play basketball the same way horses are prepared to run in the Kentucky Derby. The little brown basketball and Black males and females are inseparable images. The affiliation of Black people in the game did not always exist. In the early 1950s, the majority of the players in the NBA were white athletes. And so yeah, this is just like all ball games, especially the NFL. Football is definitely just a continuation of chattel slavery with the measuring of the bodies and like making sure that the Black male is totally fit to play the sport. So yeah, and it's just so wealthy moment that a lot of Black athletes will go to the bedroom with a white female and make a heavily confused victim in that process. It makes a lot of sense. But what Boasting says, we spend all that time throwing these brown balls into white nets. Your brain computer may get the signal that, hey, you're supposed to put your phallus in a white net, aka vagina. So super terroristic.
Started watching Colin Kaepernick's Black and White, and there's a mention of a comparison between how the draft pick and the what is it called, the auction, when they would put the slaves up on the auction and have white people pick and pay for which one they want for a slave. Yeah, that's in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. Interesting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add really quick. Even with what Miss Helen just mentioned, how we see these players and how even when they go, I don't know if any of you have watched like when they start trading players, it's like trading day, I believe it's called, and they go down like with their stats and just like how they are physically. Oh, they're a fast runner, or oh, they can bring it to the hoop, or whatever they say. It just reminded me of, as it was mentioned prior, how slaves are traded, especially when they're healthy and they're like quote unquote healthy, and they're like, oh, this person can pick cotton fast, or this one will help you do this and do this, make lots of money. So it just reminded me of taking that concept into sports and how this concept is continuing, but no one is saying anything or said anything, you know, that I know of. I'm pretty sure people have mentioned this quite a few times, but it's just, it hasn't been said to everyone. It's almost like hidden, where it's like, oh, this is a great opportunity, just take it. Like, oh, you need to get out the quote unquote Black communities or the inner city. This will let you out. So everyone sees this as a way, quote unquote, out, and not really as like, oh, you're going in to be a slave for everyone to watch and clap for you.
Yeah, and the thing very well said, Ms. Nanaya. Earlier in the book, Kyrie and Harold mentions how a lot of Black males are quoted saying, "If I wasn't playing ball, I'd be out robbing people," because you know that is literally the design. You know that if we want to entertain them, that's perfectly fine. But we want to try to do anything else of a constructive value, it'll make it very, very, very difficult. Mr. Ray / Drill found the clip of Joe Rogan saying what he said, so I want to give it a listen, and then we can have Ray chime in, and then Kwaku. Yes.
What are you?
Dad's black, mom's white. Standard issue, pretty much.
Powerful combination genetic wise, right? You get the body of the Black man, and then you get the mind of the white man all together in some strange combination. That doesn't, by the way, mean that Black people don't have brains. It's a different brain. Don't get me wrong.
Oh wow, a different. What different
brain.
Yeah, a less intelligent brain. I suspect he's trying to communicate, or and perhaps an inferior brain, which is, you know, how they like to present this planet. You know, they're the superior people, and non-white people are the inferiors. Very, very telling. Joe Rogan, I've always despised this individual even before I knew about white supremacy, because he's just a little cretin. And any person who's hosting a show like Fear Factors, getting laughs from people eating horse dicks and eating bugs, is a creep in my book. And racist man, suspected racist Joe Rogan is just doing what he's supposed to do, mistreat non-white people in various forms. And yeah, comments from the panel.
Yes, I just wanted to add that there is an ex-NFL player. His name is Anthony E. Pryor, and I believe he has 3 past broadcasts on the Cows, and he talks specifically on how sports, specifically the NFL and the NBA, treat their players like slaves, and how there are, he documents times where the players would refer to the coaches and team owners as boss and sometimes masters, literally. Again, his name is Anthony E. Pryor, past guest on the Cows, and he has 3 books, which is The Slave Side of Sunday, Faith on 40 Yards, and Black Horses, White Cotton, and Religion, Black Male.
Thank you, Mr. Ray Flasher, Black Horses. Quakey, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I found a clip that relates to like NBA players being, you know, compared to like Godzilla. So I found on YouTube a clip of Charles Barkley in a Nike commercial.
Can you put it in the chat so I could put it on the screen?
Yeah.
Really, yeah. And this is this sport, basketball in particular, just so celebrated, and just a lot of Black people, non-white people spend their time and energy in this field, and they have no clue what they're consuming, and all the racist messages that is being implanted in their brain computer. And every year, millions of Black people buy this game called NBA 2K to role play as these Black males, and just really silly, if you ask me. So let's get this clip. Thank you for the clip, Corey.
The Lakers are looking for a big man.
Incredible. And Charles Barkley has been often quoted and saying many things that white supremacists love hearing. So I'm pretty sure we've already discussed him being in a tragic arrangement with a white female, which is a one of the most racist forms of aggression a white person can commit against us, is pretending that they love us and raping us while pretending it's sex. But yeah, that was a really telling piece of imagery. You know, at the end, the black male and the black monster became so-called friends. It looked like
for me, you know, all the, you know, most of the Godzilla, when Godzilla is fighting somebody, you know, those films, that being is usually not trying to save the earth or anything. You know, they're just as destructive as Godzilla is. So for me, for what that's telling me is, you know, Charles Barkley is the Dark Invader. You know, he's budding up with Godzilla. You know, they're gonna be he they're going to, they don't care about saving anyone. You know, they're just here. They're just friends. You know, it has nothing to do with saving the planet or, you know, being it has nothing to do with saving the planet, pretty much. You know, that's the message that I'm getting, that these dark invaders are just as bad as Godzilla, and they're friends with Godzilla.
What's interesting too is that the Godzilla character, it kind of looks like is it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he has the glasses. You know how, like, when he starts playing basketball, I thought that was interesting because I feel like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually somewhat constructive in that I know he's talked about black. Well, I don't know. I won't say something that I don't know, but I just think it's interesting that it looks like him.
Oh, that's a great point. I didn't even notice that, but now that you say it, I can't unsee it. I don't know much about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I know he did wear glasses. Like, that's kind of something that he's known for when he's playing, I assume.
very, very interesting. Wow. I don't know anything about Mr. Kareem, but from what Ash just said, I think this is just another way that they are making like cheeky, snide, symbolic messages to mistreat and poke fun at Mr. Kareem. If he did wear glasses in this fashion, he probably upset some folks in that industry for maybe attempting to be constructive. I don't know, but it would be a reason why they would present this imagery in this manner, I think. Are there any folks who would like to share? It doesn't have to be regarding the NBA. It could be regarding any notes that were taken from this segment of reading.
Let's not forget Donald Sterling and that whole situation. And I don't want to leave out his wife. But yeah, let's not forget Donald Sterling and the Magic Johnson situation, and don't think that he's the only one. No.
Wait, can you explain Donald Sterling's wife?
Okay, the reason why I'm including her, because I never want to leave white women out, right? And so what he did, supposedly he had a mistress, a non-white mistress, and she was taking pictures with Magic Johnson. Donald Sterling said to his so-called mistress, non-white female, that, I don't want you taking pictures. Why you have to bring him in here? You know, I'd rather you sleep with him than be seen with him or whatever. But I just don't want to leave his wife out, because his wife knows his mentality, knows, his thoughts and and his racist behavior, and and so I just don't want to leave her out. That's why I added her.
So on page 104, we have more code words, them being just a bunch: gang member, gang related, gang violence. And on 105, we have gang bangers, gang rape. But I'm just gonna read gang related because all of them are pretty much associated with the same thing. Black people, black males being violent criminals, being gangbangers. But as we discussed earlier, there's no such thing as a black gangbanger. The biggest gangsters on the planet are racist man, racist woman, and racist child. So I'm just gonna read from 104, gang related. This code is like drug related, and it is a catchphrase for all Black youth issues. The term gang related is used to define all murderers or other unsavory activities engaged by Black male youth. The purpose of this term is to label Black males as criminals and dangerous to society. It also codifies clothes, colors, and sign language as gang based. In reality, there's only one real gang, and that is the gang of white supremacists who run the world. 100% accurate. I was gonna play a clip which showed Black males just being as they were programmed to be destructive, harming each other, calling each other bitches, saying they're gonna knock each other out. But we're aware of this dynamic and of this reality. So I don't think I should play that imagery because that is the design, and it's no help that that these students from the clip I'm referring to are in a school, so a so-called therapeutic school, but no one is talking to them about white supremacy, racism. No one is telling them that they were programmed to be this way. They were programmed to want to harm other Black people. So I don't think it's constructive to share that. I just explained it. Any comments before I continue on with my notes?
It's interesting that back in the day when
I wanted to comment. Oh,
Ms. Helen, let to continue.
it's interesting how back in the day in the news or in the newspaper, when this term is used, gang related or gang member, that non-white people, especially non-white Black males, they knew that, okay, all of a sudden the police are going to frisk them, stop them for no reason and frisk them, right? And we understood that, but we didn't understand how deep that went. And like, that's just amazing. It's really amazing. And yeah, Central Park 5, that whole situation, just the term gang was used here and there, and a lot of Black males were frisked, stopped, and thrown in jail for no reason. Whether you're going to school, going to work, didn't matter. Just that's disgusting.
And the clip that I was gonna play, I saw that a lot. Black males, Black children, Black girls as well being frisked. And that's part of the criminalization, the programming us to behave like criminals, and because we're already being treated like criminals. When I was doing my observational study at Carver Middle School, that they did random school searches where they was going to a class, pull out the students and frisk them, all for the so-called safety. But I had never heard no Black kids doing no Columbine, doing no Virginia Tech, none of that. It's always been white people or non-Black people who are shooting up schools and campuses. So it's just to further program these young, tragic brain computers into being criminals, because if they're already being treated like criminals, what's going to stop them from acting like one? Not much, especially if they're surrounded by so-called adults who do not tell them the truth. And that is just you know, Black students not receiving the truth is very, very deadly for and very detrimental to their future. Because if I was told about white supremacy as a wee lad, little boy, I think I would be much, much more constructive than I am now. I think I would have used all of my youthful energy that we have in those ages to really want to counter racism. Um, but because we don't have the awareness that we should be countering racism, that we were born to counter racism, to end a war against us, we just, you know, play basketball, you know, pretend to be gangsters, pretend to be thugs, and you know, we just spend our whole existence being confused, which is a fate worse than death. Mr. Kweku, would you like to chime in?
Yes. So I wanted to talk. I'm sure you guys already covered this, but I wanted to give my thoughts on these two code words, crackhead and junkie. I'll talk about junkie first. So for me, junkie, when I think of the word junkie, I think of a white person. That's the immediate image that comes to mind when I think of a junkie. You know, somebody who's doing, you know, hardcore drugs, but they're white. The thing about junkie though for me is like he even says it here, it's like reference to trash. Like trash, you can clean up trash, right? Like you can pick it up, you can get rid of the trash, you know, but you can save it still. That's basically what it's saying. You know, you can throw away trash, but you can still, it's like redeemable almost. And then when you think about crackhead, unfortunately, I think about Black people when I think about a crackhead. But when you think about crack, you know, you think about like cracks in a foundation. You know, that stuff is really hard to repair. You know, that takes a lot of work, sometimes almost impossible to repair that. I Googled junkie and tons of white images, white people coming up. That's what you see. When you type in crackhead, you see tons of non-white people, tons and tons of non-white people. So I definitely don't think that that's a coincidence that, you know, when I think of junkie, I think of a white person, and junkie is talking about trash, something that you can clean up. And when I think about crackhead, I think about Black people. I think that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. And I think those kind of terms are kind of related. They're related, but it's like, you know, crackhead is definitely more, you know, it's definitely much more harsh than like a junkie, in my opinion. That's what I wanted to share.
Thank you. Very, yeah, just very much along the lines of what I said earlier, and yeah, very telling word, as many of these code phrases are. Ray, would you like to chime in?
Yes, I was just pointing out the play on words, well, the confusion that the white supremacists deal out. Going back to Quaker, he was speaking about the word junkie. I'm looking here and it says the definition is a narcotics addict, especially one addicted to heroin. And then when you go to heroin, now not in the context of the drug, but if you add E to the end, that is a girl or woman of outstanding courage, nobility, etc., or of heroic achievements. The central female character in a novel, play, etc., with whom the reader or audience is supposed to sympathize. Heroin, junkie. Very interesting, very related.
Yeah, this is wow. Masters of words, masters of deception. Page 105, forced busing. This is a code phrase that evolved during the Nixon administration. The term came to symbolize a bus carrying Black children to school in predominantly white areas. Forced busing became the mechanism to pressure Black children to interact in white learning environments, and decoded communication. The long school bus carried a breed of non-white savages, young rapists, and culturally inferior offspring, with Black children in the classroom Subject matter would have to be tweaked and altered. The message of white domination would be endangered. Millions of white people fled the central city school districts to set up new public and private education systems to protect and control the flow of information. Terroristic at best. This is one of the ways that Black people are seen as some sort of plague in a white supremacy. Wherever we go, the white people flee, or the environment seemingly erodes, especially the learning environment. Because my victim mother went through some considerable effort to get me bused to white schools. And when I got there, I am in these remedial classes that I should not be in because the subject matter is just laughably easy for me. And I was looking in classes where they're teaching us how to read and stuff. But I already know how to read. I already know how to do these things. But that's just how part of, even when we think we're going to these white schools for a so-called better education, the sabotaging is already in place. For as soon as we get there, we are removed from the white people, because I was in white schools, but I didn't see many white people in my classrooms because I was tracked to be a highly victimized and just person that should have been in greater confinement, not attempting to solve the race problem, which is what I was designed to be. And even in high school, when I was not tracked to be in remedial classes, I still found myself amongst white people when we are maybe in PE or maybe and during lunch. But I wasn't that many white people in my classes because they had done a excellent job at keeping us separated, because these fears are still there. White people do not want their children anywhere near these potential gang members, potential criminals that are known as Black people on planet Earth. So forced busing is very useless in regards to solving the problem. A lot of people may think that, hey, that's good. We're using all these taxpayers to give these Black kids a better education. No such thing as a better education under the system of white supremacy. I may be in error, but I think I am not. Any comments?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how he added the with Black children in the classroom, subject matter would have to be tweaked and altered. The message of white domination would be endangered. And I thought, well, no wonder nobody black kids go to school and don't learn anything, because if they were teaching the white kids the way that they want to teach them, I think Black people wouldn't be confused about the position that they're in, right? You'd be clear. You clearly understand that you lost the war. You're a victim of racism. You're a prisoner. And this is that the white students are definitely learning that, I'm supposed to be dominating. I was born and bred to be dominating. I mean, they still get that. They still get that messaging and imagery wherever they go, and they still learn that. And I think that's part of the reason why, some of these teachers in these schools, they'll talk about World War II, and a white student wants to do a presentation on Hitler. They're not going to stop them. they're not going to prevent them from doing that, because that's exactly what they should be learning about, right? Praise Hitler.
Correct. And even in the classroom where there's a bunch of Black boys, a bunch of white boys and girls, the messages that are being received is often that, hey, my people made y'all slaves, and we killed Martin Luther King, and we killed Malcolm X, and we killed the Black Panthers, and the Black child receiving that, wow, whoever tries to help us gets killed, and we were slaves. So not much of confidence being built up if those are the messages we're receiving 24/7, or whenever we're in these classrooms. So yeah, it's very important that before we procreate, produce an offspring, that do we know enough about this problem to teach our offspring what it means to be classified, racially classified as a Black person, and do we have the ability to teach them to not react emotionally to the constant mistreatment they will receive under the system? If not, don't bring any more silly, confused, stupid Black people to this planet. We need serious soldiers. We do not need any more twerking, rapping Black people who are gonna just not help solve the problem. We already have enough of those. I may be in error. I may be off code saying this, but I'm just attempting to follow the logic. The prison's already full. Prison's full. It's time to break it down. And if you're not interested in that, then planet ain't big enough for both of us. I think white people are famous for saying that. From 105, desegregation. This part of the coded busing language and race code speech, it means to break up of white learning environments. It is a threat to the social homogeneity of white culture. It means Black boys with white girls and interracial offspring. It signals a new world order and race management systems. And I suspect desegregation was a disastrous phase of white supremacy. At once upon a time, Black people were in their own environment amongst themselves, being constructive. They had their own so-called businesses. Despite those businesses not being dedicated to ending the race problem, they had their own environments, and it was perceived to be that they were doing well. But certain people came along and said, hey, let's integrate. Let's have the white girls and white boys, and Black people like together. I think that has done a terrible job on Black people, because what integration looks like to me, it looks like a bunch of white people and Black people in the middle of the street fighting each other, and white people saying nigga and Black people saying nigga. Everyone's having a good time. That's what integration looks like to me. It did not end up being, okay, we're all becoming constructively together. We're all helping to solve this problem together. It did not end up like that. It ended up with white girls twerking, wearing the same nonsense that Black females wear. That's what it ended up being. Did not end up being anything of constructive value. We probably be much better off if we were as far away from the enemy, which is racist men and racist women, as possible. But they wanted to keep a greater eye on us. They wanted to greater control, which is what desegregation has led to. I'm fine not being able to use their toiletries and water fountains and whatnot. But now I don't have the option. Now we are so-called integrated into the system of white supremacy. We've always been integrated into this system since contact with white people, but the way they present it as, okay, this integration is really going to solve the problem. It's really going to get us closer to the progress of solving the problem. Has not, will not do that. The folks want to share some of their own notes before I continue with my notes?
Yeah, so on page 106, dysfunctional family. This is a code phrase to define Black families as incompetent and unable to function successfully. This term has all but devastated and debased the lives of millions of Black families. So I've personally caught myself saying that, like, oh, my family's dysfunctional. I come from a dysfunctional family. But then, what is a functional family look like? Under a system of racism and white supremacy, that is a white family, even though those families are severely dysfunctional, right? But Black people, Black families are the ones being called dysfunctional. They're the ones being labeled as dysfunctional. They're being labeled as the only families with any kind of issues, right? White families, they got the house, the 2 kids, the parents who are both in their lives, whereas Black families, they're broken, one parent in the home, multiple children, and we're constantly being labeled as dysfunctional, even though there are plenty of white families that are dysfunctional as well. And that's just, really the theme with this book, and, exposing the truth that there are just words that are constantly being associated with Black families and Black people in general, even though under a system of racism, white supremacy, all of these families, all of these people are suffering from these, but the goal is to make Black people seem like they're inferior, that racism doesn't exist, they're just naturally like this, and there's nothing that can be done to save them.
Precisely, and I think dysfunctional is a very correct term to use when describing people who have been racially classified as Black, because we do not function correctly in the war that we are in, from my observations. And there's no, we learned from ISIS papers, and especially the code book, that there's no such thing as a Black family. At best, victim unit, survival unit, but yeah, the only family that exists is what you manage. I mean, what you said is white families. So in order to be in a so-called family, you have to be able to protect that family, provide for that family without going to another source for that aid. And we are not allowed to do that at all in the system of white supremacy. We can attempt to do so, right? We can attempt to do so, but at any moment, if racist man or racist woman decides, you know what, I want to go eliminate that Black male or that Black female who calls themselves a mother or a father, if they ever decide to do that, there's very little we can do to stop that. So, yep, no such thing as a Black family, and we are insanely dysfunctional within the system of white supremacy, because many of us were not told the truth. We've been lied to our entire existence. And this is why I believe there's just such a extremely insane degree of behavior patterns that no matter which area you look at, you can find Black people being like it says we will be under this system: silly, primitive, stupid, and very, 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 very confused.
I thought I should read the definition of dysfunctional. It says not operating normally or properly. Underneath that says deviating from the norms of social behavior in a way regarded as bad. So already, that social norms of social behavior, racist man, racist woman, they decide what is normal social behavior. They decide who is regarded as bad and who is regarded as good. And Black people are always regarded as bad. Black people are always regarded as deviating from whatever norms of social behavior are.
100%. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm gonna read these 3 code words on 106. Natives. This more than any other term has been used to define non-whites in other areas of the world, especially Africa and darker Asia. The word gained popular use in movies in the 1950s. The natives meant Black Indians and very dark-skinned Asian and or Indians from India. The Tarzan books and motion pictures helped to institutionalize and attach the word to Black people, and white supremacy folklore. It stands for savage and primitive people. Troubled area / neighborhoods. This is code for an area in which the majority of the residents are Black people. The white supremacists will ensure that these areas remain destabilized and confused. Troubled kids. This code for Black youth from inner city neighborhoods. It means also that these children are ill-mannered, unkept savages, violence prone, and natural born killers. They must be watched very closely for signs of disorder. So these 3 code words is why The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept is such an important book that every single Black person should have a copy of. ProduceJustice.com to get your copy. Not only have a copy, but actually read the book, study the book, and attempt to practice counter racist logic, because white people have done a number on us. The damage has been enacted for thousands and thousands of years. Just how I believe that you can't go from owning slaves, being able to rape those slaves, eat those slaves, beat those slaves at any moment. You can't go from that sort of behavior for hundreds of years and then overnight, all of a sudden, no longer want to do those things. So if we've been under attack for thousands of years, there's no way we're going to be able to counter this problem without having some sort of code. We need like a code of thought, speech, and behavior. And the code book gives us that. You know, you don't have to follow every piece of that code, but you need to have an understanding that we can't hide behind anything besides logic and the things that white people allow us to hide behind, like the United States Constitution, perhaps. But yeah, we have been presented to be savages, primitive people, and very confused. And 9 times out of 10, we are those things because we choose to behave and we have been led to behave in a way that is just super, super, super silly. I have never in my existence seen a group of non-Black people, so-called Asians, twerking to the poles. I've never seen it. I've never seen, but I've seen Black people doing this because we promote just insane ghetto glorification. Please get the code book, get the word guide, and just 10 stops. You know, just 10 stops is very important. We should not be okay with being the savages of the earth, which racist women, they want to keep us in this forever. They would love for us to be confused forever, but that we can't allow that to happen. There's too many Black people on planet Earth for so few of us to have an understanding of what the fuck is going on planet Earth, and it's it's ridiculous that so many Black people have presented this information to us, but we rather listen to Young Thug. We rather listen to Drake and Travis Scott instead of people who want us to no longer be slaves of planet Earth, slaves of white people. You know, it just takes us to change our thoughts, speech, and behavior to solve this problem. It's really that simple. Maybe incorrect. And I'd rather be amongst the Black people who are for justice or death, but this slow death, torture, everywhere I see Black people being silly, confused, or in a state of utter misery. Yeah, I'm not with this. This is super whack. We all should be just done with seeing Black people die miserably, and we laugh at it. It's fun to see us be destroyed in 2021. Yeah, this is deplorable behavior. Deplorable that we as a collective of people who have been classified as Black, it's taking this long to get serious about solving a problem. Comments, notes to share. Interesting.
I agree with you, VGQ. Wholeheartedly, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a ton of words, and I'm just trying to figure out which one to cover next. So I'm just gonna read bitch from 106. This is a very ugly code word for Black females. Unfortunately, it has become a word used by Black males to describe their relationships with females and incorrectly see Black females as untrustworthy, treacherous, and more supportive of white males than of Black men. A bitch is a female dog. The nature of a dog suggests many things, ranging from a lack of morals to viciousness to a non-stop baby-making machine. This connection of Black females to dogs began during slavery. The white master used Black women as breeders for his new slaves and for sexual frolic and perversion. The word bitch also suggests that Black women, particularly the darker skin variety, is not as feminine or as sexually attractive as the white female or very light skinned Black female. It is rare even today to hear white females referred to as bitches. This designation is placed solely on Black women and is one of the most destructive and demeaning terms ever used to define a human being. 100% accurate. The last sentence I'm referring to being 100% accurate. Him saying one of the most destructive and demeaning terms ever used to define a human being. I would say person, because human beings don't exist on planet Earth currently. The song, Bad and Bougie by the Migos, 1 billion views, and that song's all about ghetto glorification, celebrating a Black male's partner being a bad bitch. And we've become so retarded that, Black females and Black males will celebrate one another being bad bitches, whatever the hell that means. I suspect it means a very comfortable victim in a system of white supremacy who has many, many trinkets. This is area 3 rap hip hop. It's very hard to find a rap album that does not use this word bitch over and over and over and over. This is why I have my own definition for bitch, which is any person who refuses to counter racism, white supremacy with their thought, speech, and action. If you are a person who refuses to counter racism, white supremacy with your thought, speech, and action, you are, by my codified definition, a bitch with a capital B. So yeah, these rappers, these entertainers who constantly degrade Black females, non-white females with their noise that they call music, those are the real bitches, not Black females who just not Black females. So dangerous term. And we have, I think Black people just, the victimization is so much that we don't begin to counter. We just accept it, because for a long time, Black females were like, they were upset and they did not like hearing the word bitch in rap music, and that was one of the talking points they were used, that rap is bad because they're always calling females bitches in it. And I would agree, but I guess with the help of Lil Kim, Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B, now it's acceptable to be a bad bitch. Now Black females, non-white females have accepted the monikers a bitch, which is again how we will accept things instead of countering it. And if we got called nigger for so long, we started calling ourselves nigga. So it just goes to show that instead of countering it, we've been programmed to just accept the mistreatment, accept the any sort of word that is used to mistreat us, instead of having a code that says, hey, I'm not gonna use that word, and when I use it, it's gonna mean this. They try to do that with nigga, but from what I see, it still means victim of racism, white supremacy. I don't see a difference between nigga and nigger. They all seem to do the same thing, which is to be silly and avoiding the race problem. So, and I remember, I think some folks may have been here during the Welsing Institute, where that Black female was describing like what a bitch is, what a female dog is, and how like the breeding of a bitch and all of that stuff. And I was like, wow, we allow and we perpetuate calling each other this word as like we're calling each other brothers and sisters, which is why I don't like those terms either, because we don't act like it. We don't act like brothers and sisters. And yeah, just a lot. Just masters of words, racist men and racist women. zero understanding of words seem to be victims of racism. Any comments?
Yeah, racist man, racist woman, they basically went out and found any black, non-white person, black person that is completely fine with trashing their own people. Unfortunately, I'm sure there's a lot of confusion within those victims. The racists have deceived them as well. So Cardi B's, Meg Thee Stallions, all these people, black females, black males, going out making these words and phrases okay. It's very unfortunate, and even find yourself sometimes, even though some of these artists who may be considered constructive or conscious, they're still using those words. So it's unfortunate. When I was reading that section, I thought about Boondocks, specifically a pimp named Slickback. So I went and I was kind of watching his episodes, just to see if I could find what he was saying, and you assume since he's a black male, talking about that, he's obviously talking about black females. And I'm not, but what I did notice with that was in that episode, and I could be wrong, but it was like he was only referring to white women, white females the entire time as bitches. Like anytime he said, oh, call that female a bitch, it was a white female. Even the female that he was hitting, they were all blonde hair white females. So that was interesting to see with the satire in that show. But I can say, me personally, I haven't really been in too many environments where, at least I guess with my attempted parents, where we refer to each other, or we refer to each other as bitches. Usually I did, you would call your friend a bitch or something, like acting like a bitch or something, something like along those lines. But nevertheless, that word is very, very destructive. And it's name calling, right? 12 stop name calling. Shouldn't be referring to each other as anything but what they want to be called. Those are my thoughts on that word.
Thank you, Koiku. Very, very telling. And if a person is going to produce content calling females bitches, I'd much rather it be white people, white women being called that, because for my definition, they are most certainly the ones who fit the behavior of not wanting to use their thought, speech, and behavior to counter racism, white supremacy.
Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she had a quote, and she spoke about using this term and how it's played in music, noise and rap music. And I think everybody should definitely check it out. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, her thoughts on this term. I'm not even going to use the word.
Thank you. So furthering, Ho, 107. Ho, this is another code word for Black females. A ho refers to the opening of the vagina. It essentially means the Black female is a trick and a prostitute. She is good for only sexual purposes. It also implies that she is not worthy of attention, affection, and commitment, and should be used like an animal. So another word that is constantly used in Area 3, so-called music, and ho is it's the same sound as the tool, the farming tool that is used to plow the land, I think. And perhaps it's just linking the two words together to further emphasize that Black females, non-white females are merely tools to be used by a racist man and racist woman. That's certainly how they were used during the slavery phase of white supremacy. They were used as tools for white people's gains and for their profit and for their maintenance and white supremacy. So now we have ho being regurgitated again amongst non-white people, especially Black people. And it just goes to show how these rappers, these hip hoppers of the 2021 era just have no understanding or no care about the system of white supremacy that we're all living in. Perhaps they're just happy with their trinkets and their comfortability, that they have no problem spreading this destructive noise to the youth, the young Black people who will receive these messages. And I hear her stories. I hear horror stories all the time from people who are working in schools and working around schools, and they see the kids coming out. And I'm saying kids because I know kid means animal, and I'm using that word specifically because children are not supposed to behave in a way that it's being reported to me that they're behaving. So kids are outside, calling each other bitches, niggas, cursing continuously. And it's because they don't have anyone in their existence tell them the truth, not their teachers, not their victim parents, not anyone. So they're just gonna follow these so-called celebrities. They're gonna become fanatics, so-called fans of the likes of Drake, Travis Scott, Lil Nas X, and just gonna grow up totally confused, an easy mark, meaning an easy target for racist men and racist women to do whatever they want with them. Want to take them to the bedroom for anti-sexual, counter-sexual behaviors, activities, won't be a problem. Want to lead them to greater confinement, won't be a problem, because no one in their existence has told them that's what their enemy plans to use them with. The white people aren't planning to teach you anything constructive. They don't want you being a constructive member of the planet's existence. They much rather have you in the bedroom raping you, pretending it's sex, or leading you to greater confinement. So it's a lot we have to teach the youth, or they're going to continue being kids, which is just animals who are not able to be controlled unless a white person comes around and controls them forcibly. Because I said it yesterday, we have been, not only are we programmed to be silly, confused, and stupid, but we're also programmed to be highly arrogant and highly egotistical. And that is a really dangerous combination, to be stupid and have a huge ego. You think you're untouchable. You think no one can harm you, but white people have no problem snatching us up and throwing us into greater confinement whenever we get loud and rowdy, which is a symptom of being arrogant and egotistical. So we have to eliminate the ego. We have to be willing to understand that, hey, we are retarded, myself especially included, super retarded, grew up thinking that, hey, racism not a problem. Black people are it's just random. We're in this position because of random effects. A really stupid thing to think that, hey, we are at the bottom due to randomness. White people have deliberately placed us at the bottom and treat us worse than garbage, because at least garbage sometimes can get recycled. But no, we are just treated worse than garbage. It has to change, and it won't change with a few of us on this Zoom call. It needs to be millions of people practicing counter-racist knowledge, and hopefully this broadcast reaches the people who are wanting an understanding of why things seem so decrepit on all planets, all walks of life. Things just seem so decrepit and so miserable. And why is there so much suffering directed at Black people? It's not by random, like I thought it was once upon a time. It's deliberate, and the people who are to blame and the people who are to be suspicious of are all white people. Notes? Comments?
Yeah, I suspect that if Black people were to start practicing counter-racism, Black self-respect, that these words and their effect on us wouldn't exist. There's no good reason why we should be going around calling each other calling ourselves each other bitches and hoes. That does absolutely nothing for us. I think it just confuses us. It definitely confuses us more about the system of racism, because now you think, oh, this person's mistreating me. You know, there's no way a white person could be racist. This is when I made this black person saying these obscenities to me, that's racism. You know, oh, black people, no, white people have never done anything to me. Black people have treated me worse than any other people, anybody else has ever treated. You know, so it just goes to show you that you know, that kind of behavior definitely confuses us more. So start practicing Black self-respect. 12 stops, get familiar with them. Stop name calling. Stop being discourteous and disrespectful to one another. And a lot, you know, I suspect that we could end the system of racism, white supremacy overnight, in a blink of an eye, if enough Black people start getting on code, practicing Black self-respect. These kind of words, they would mean absolutely nothing. There wouldn't even be a race code word, because, you know, come on, you're trying to. I respect myself too much for somebody calling me a bitch to even like faze me. You know, they must be they're female dog. Like, I'm not a dog. You know, I'm a person. You know, that's not real.
Well, Quaker, let me ask you this: how do you expect to reach this critical number of Black people when the majority of Black people are unwilling to sit down and read a book?
I mean, you know, that's the $1 million question right there. I think that's something that's counter-racist. Yeah, it's counter-racist. That's something, you know, attempted counter-racist, something that we, you know, are thinking about. How can we reach the people that need to be reached after they've been brain trashed so intensely under the system of racism? You know, you know, slowly but surely there are people who have just been so suffocated by the system of racism that they're finally looking for an outlet, a constructive outlet, right? They're looking for something that is starting to make sense, because everything I've tried before that just doesn't, it's not logical, it's not working. And, you know, some victims, they realize that, and then that's when they make their way into counter racism. But other than that, you know, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, right? But, you know, when they do come, we have the content for them, and you know, providing them with the resources they need that they're asking for. You know.
Yeah, I like to believe, maybe I am wrong in this belief, but that this channel is compensation or compensatory for those who do not want to read. You know, we're doing it for you. You know, we do the reading for you. All you gotta do is listen and look around. Are the things we're seeing accurate? Are the things read in these books accurate? If they are, then you have a responsibility and duty to use your thought, speech, and action to produce a system of justice along with us. Because I was in South Central LA, walking around, attempting to talk to Black people about, you know, this book club and about reading, and it was just an eye-opening experience, because Black people are comfortable in their misery, comfortable in their retardation, and I would hope that, you know, hey, you don't have to read. Just find this channel. Just, you know, creators send these Black people a message, or to find, you know, Gus T. Renegade's content, you know, Dr. Singh Hughes content. You know, there's so much information out here that one really doesn't need to pick up a book. We need to listen to stuff if they really have been sabotaged to that degree where they don't want to read. Because I've heard this from one of the Wellston Institutes, a Black male. He thinks reading is not constructive, you know, and this is probably due to racism and programming. You know, for a long time they made reading to be something nerdy, something, yeah, you're a geek, you read it, you're a geek, you know, and not worth people's investment. But, you know, we could go buy Teflon bags, we could go buy literally anything besides a book, you know. So yeah, it's just, you know, the people who do not want to begin to counter racism, I suspect are BOD, better off dead. Maybe this just may be my monstrosity, my monster programming. I am a monstrosity at best. So I have, yeah, you don't want to help solve the problem. I don't give a, you should be alive. Pretty simple. This planet, there's a war happening on this planet. You're either helping the side who wants justice or the side who wants to maintain the system of injustice, white terror domination, racism, white supremacy. So if you don't want to help solve the problem, then I'm going to say it again, better off dead, BOD. Continuing. But violence prone. This code phrase means that Black males are genetically predisposed to be violent, savage, and subhuman. They are naturally uncivilized, and all the money and social programs will not change their behavior. This is why political sayings such as "we can't keep throwing money at the problem" originated during the Reagan administration. And this sentence, "we" means white people and the problem is Black people. This phrase means that it is a waste of money to try to upgrade these people because they are naturally inferior and born violent and barbarian. They have limited intellectual and social development skills. The only way to handle them is to bleach the color out through the process of miscegenation, imprison the male population, thus reducing the Black on Black reproduction, or selectively exterminate. Awesome. I think a lot of this is projection from the white supremacist hive mind. The projections being because they are naturally inferior and born violent and barbarian. Who has a track record of being utterly violent towards people and nature? Not Black people. Not people classified as Black, that's for sure. I think it's white people who not only have a long tradition of being barbaric and violent towards people, maiming them, flaying them. Vlad the Impaler celebrated tons of videos about Vlad the Impaler on YouTube. Look at, I'm sure we all know who that is here, but if you don't, look up that guy. There's millions of him running around 2021, I suspect. So I think this is projection. Inferior. I don't like to use these terms, inferior, superior, but I'm going to read from ISIS papers really quickly. To read from a psychologist, Dr. Frances Welsing, who says, what does she say here? All right, she says, from page 175 of the ISIS papers, persons lacking high levels of melanin pigmentation in the nervous system, which includes the skin as its outermost manifestation, have great difficulty in observing energy data from the universe at multiple frequencies, deep energy levels. Therefore, these white-skinned people, the founders of Western civilization and culture, experience great difficulty in understanding and decoding the symbol. This is the most fundamental reason that Westerners have difficulty in thinking like Easterners. I'm going to skip a little bit. Melanated peoples are functioning with a sixth sense, the additional sensory system being that of melanin pigmentation, while Westerners function with only 5 senses. Thus, the Western dictionaries define hieroglyphs as difficult to decipher. Similarly, Western dictionaries define parable as an obscure or enigmatic saying. So I don't know if Black people have the so-called sixth sense and white people do not. I don't know how we would be the inferior ones on this planet. But again, I don't like to use these terms. So I think it's just a projection from white people, the violence prone. Look up. Let's just look up child killers. Child killers. Most of them will be white. So born violent. if you are a child, you're already killing your family, then I think that could be some evidence of that individual was born violent. But again, I may be in error, but I don't think Black people are violence prone. I think the people who have this system of white supremacy, which needs the destruction and death of Black children, Black males, Black females, 24/7, dying in the various ways through famine, starvation, conflicts that white people could stop, but they do not. So yeah, it's just a projection. I suspect the real barbarians, the real gangsters are a racist man, a racist woman, and a racist child.
If Black people are violent prone, it's only because we are in a state of survival. And bringing up the word barbarian, when white people began their conquest of the planet, they were in survival mode. So the violence ensued. So yeah, projection. We naturally, Black people don't have the need to be violent, but since we're in a confused survival state, that's the only way that we are prone to violence. I suspect. I could be in error.
Yeah, I think you're correct in that.
I felt it was necessary to read the definition of prone. Obviously there's two uses for the word prone, one of them being laying flat on your front, but it says likely to or liable to suffer from, do or experience something, typically something regrettable or unwelcome. And I think under a system of racism, white supremacy, Black people are definitely violent, bro. They experience things that are unwelcome and regrettable every day under a system of racism, white supremacy. It's important to know and also to vocalize that Black people were not born this way. Under a system of racism, white supremacy, Black people have been made to be deaf, dumb, and stupid. It's through no fault of their own. It's the system of racism doing exactly operating how it should. Deaf, meaning they can't hear, they cannot hear the constructive thoughts, the constructive information that they are getting. Dumb, meaning they cannot speak. They cannot speak about the oppression that they experience all day, every day. The great tragic tragedy of living under a system of racism, white supremacy. They are unable to vocalize that. And stupid, meaning it's hard for them to use logic and whatever common sense means, right? So even though there are resources like code, the ISIS papers, it's just because of the effects of racism, white supremacy, they can't comprehend it. A lot of them, unfortunately. So hopefully through this work and through much explanation and patience, we other victims can help. That's the constructive purpose of this channel, guys.
Indeed, helping folks to understand, learn about the system of white supremacy and importantly their role in being a person who will be amongst those who are replacing the system of white supremacy with a system of justice, which means guaranteeing no one is to be mistreated and those who need help receive constructive help. It could all be so pleasant on planet Earth, but racist man and racist woman would rather see us in a state of misery forever. So if you are amongst the Black people who are okay in your position of being a victim of white supremacy, a literal slave to racist men and racist women, then BOD. So 108, the code word is rape/rapist. I was going to read the second paragraph. The act of sex would enable the Black male to gain control of the white female. The idea of sex with a Black male had to be painted and the most horrible and dehumanizing words. According to racist nonsense, the white female is the lily of the valley, the bright morning star, a pure white virgin, untouched, unsoiled. In recent years, white psychologists have suggested that rape is not much a sexual act as it is the quest for male power over the female. The concept holds more truth for the white male than the black male. Under the system of white domination, the white male holds the power. The act of rape is an expression of might. I'm just gonna stop there. Yeah, we learn again from this book. We have a playlist, 2 different playlists of us covering this book from beginning to end, cover to cover. So if you don't want to read it, we have you covered. Just check out that playlist because there's a chapter. I think it's chapter 15. Let me just be accurate with what I'm saying in regards to Dr. Francis Christopher Wilson's book. Chapter 14, the symbolism and meaning of rape. You will learn a lot about rape and who are the world's biggest rapists, but you should probably know, I'm sure most people watching know that already. It's racist man and racist woman. So yeah, tragically, terroristically, Black males have been presented as rapists, rapers of planet Earth, when it's actually the enemy who is the rapists and rapers of planet Earth. I would suspect 24 hours a day, we either being mind raped by the system of white supremacy. That is a word in the word guide by Neely Fuller Jr., or being raped physically, literally, by a white woman or a white man who is pretending that they're having sex with us. But check out this book right here, this book, Pieces of a Puzzle. So you will know that there's no such thing as sex between a Black person and a white person. It's rape. It's rape. It's just caught these what they are. A child cannot have sex with an adult. White supremacy has made non-white people children. They are the adults. So if one thinks of a rapist, it should be a white man or a white woman. They have spent their entire history going from landmass to landmass, capturing the males there and capturing the females there to rape them, because they have long understood that raping a male and a female is a way that they can dominate them and put them in a state of not wanting to fight back, because that sort of treatment, rape, does something devastating to the brain computer, to the soul of an individual, where they just become complacent in their position of being powerless. So the biggest rapist on planet Earth is not someone who looks like me or Helen B. It's a white person. It's racist man and racist woman. And it's so despicable that white people spent 400 years raping us, and their counterparts, the white female, did the same. But whenever she was caught, it was so easy for her to say, "Oh, he just raped me." And even after slavery, this went on this still goes on, because it's just the white psychopathology is so embedded amongst white people and has spread to us that it's not hard to believe that this Black male or Black female raped someone. It's not hard to believe that, because this is how we've been painted for almost thousands of years. So just really should be telling that we're dealing with, as Bobby E. Wright has said, psychopaths. And just to make sure I'm using the correct terminology to describe this behavior, I'm gonna look up the definition for psychopath really quickly. All right, psychopathology is a serious personality disorder characterized by antisocial behavior, untruthfulness, irresponsibility, and a lack of remorse or empathy. I think that fits the average suspected racist. It's evident being whenever we talk about the things we're talking about here, it's always, hey, what you guys don't deserve reparations, or that happened so long ago, and why are you still talking about it? So yeah, it just this system, males and females, is something else. Any comments?
It reminds me of when Dr. Wilson gave the analogy of putting an animal in a cage and then saying, well, look at you, what's wrong with you? Why can't you grow properly? That's how they treat us. They have done all these heinous things to Black people globally, local, nationally, and globally. And then they ask us, well, look at you. Why can't you grow? Why can't you prosper? Why can't you pull yourself up by the bootstraps? Well, your system wasn't set up for me to progress. You know, if ever such a thing could exist in a system of white supremacy.
Exactly. Yeah.
That reminds me of the other code word, take responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah.
After subjugating and severely traumatizing Black people, take responsibility for your own actions. That's what we're told.
Yeah, that's like adding insult to injury, them blaming what they've done to us on us. Yeah, I suggest everyone just really get serious about solving this problem, because that is they want to take white people, racism, they want to take the stuff to other planets. You know, we should not have Black people being born on Mars still being called nigger. You know, it's just we shouldn't happen, but that's where they're trying to take us. And unless we can, become super serious about our thought, speech, and behavior, unless we can unlock the things white people have sabotaged and retarded out of us, then they're gonna pull it off. Jeff Bezos is already taking white people to see the space. So we have to stop this ASAP. So we are at the final code word for this evening, and it is thug. So I'm going to read the first paragraph, and Ray is going to read the second, and then Miss B is going to read the last bits. So thug from 108. This code word has been linked to Black males for many years. In the 1970s and 80s, the term defined a hoodlum. A thug is a low-life character and a cheap criminal. He has no desire to go to school, to obey the rules, and to cooperate with law. A thug is lower than a tramp or hobo. The tramp is dirty and has odor problem. This might be one of the reasons so many young Black males wear pants down below their butts and look unwashed. This is part of a tramp's outfit. The wearing of low pants is the same as telling white people and some Black people to kiss their ass. In the process, they are also falling victim to the racist image of a lowlife. This is a racist image of a group of people without dignity or respect. On top of this, he is not even considered a first-rate criminal. The thug is depicted as the worst kind of social varmint.
The thug is a failed criminal who is relegated to low-bred and low-yield outlaw activity. The thug does not have the intellectual capacity for the white-collar, high-line, or high-end crime jobs. These are racial codes for the intelligent white criminals. A thug steals from small and defenseless people. He preys on old ladies, old men, low-income families, and mom and pop's grocery store owners and other weak victims. He lies in the bush and the shadows, two widely used code words to imply the evils of darkness in dark locations, to do his ugly deed. The word thug also suggests disorder and lawlessness. A thug must be locked up and never released into the general society. It is interesting that many young Black males fall into this image trap by identifying themselves as thugs and even going so far as to celebrate what they call thug life.
This is an extremely dangerous trend, and it opens the floodgates of justifications for more prisons, harsher jail sentences, and greater social nullification. The racists can now openly label Black males as thugs, hoodlums, criminals, and get away with it. If Black people use these incriminating terms to define themselves, then whites cannot be called racist when they do the same thing. What young Black people do not see or understand is the big racial picture. They do not know how the racist mind operates and do not understand how the racial word trap works. Young black young blacks think that the word thug is cool. They believe that it is a swank. They believe that it is swank to be a thug, except when your mother sees you in prison and when you try to get a job or are denied a student loan because of a felony record. They have unwittingly played into the hands of racists by helping them shape social um, litigations designed to lock Black people up. This is where race-based slogans such as clean up the streets come from, which when decoded means to rid the area of or minimize the number of Black males in a block, neighborhood, community, or city.
Thank you for the reading. I'm going to play this clip from the excellent channel known as Hip Hop Cartoons, which will share some more information on this thug monstrosity.
But you see them walking now and picking up the sidewalk, acting like they can whip everybody. Sure, they can whip somebody who looks just like them, because that's permitted. Permitted by whom? The white supremacists. They don't care. Kill everybody in the neighborhood. So what? There's another Black neighborhood gone. There's another one down the street, ready to go. What's the big deal? You better be careful about whose face you get into when you get carried away with what you can do to other Black people. And what's pitiful about it is most of us know that. Very few of us don't know that. We know whose face to get into. And we know just about how much backing we have.
Shame. Shame.
Black person in handcuffs. All kinds of tattoos. All kinds of long record for being able to whip everybody since ninth grade. Standing there in handcuffs in an orange jumpsuit in his best hairdo saying, "Yes, Your Honor." Why don't you use the kind of language toward Your Honor that you use with the people that you encounter right there in your neighborhood? The one that you say that you're a master over. The one that you can terrorize. All the females flocking to you and halfway scared of you. Knock them around all over the place. Call them all kind of names. Why don't you call your honor that same name? Snatch him from behind the bench. No. See, we're great show people. Greatest show people on earth. 3 9mm, one in your sock, one in your waistband, one in your side pocket. Ready to take on the entire world in a movie, in a homemade video, or passing a bus stop full of black people fixing to go to work. Or you can terrorize them. Why don't you take on the champ? Which usually is just 1 or 2 white supremacists who just come and say, now, I think you'd better behave because you're disturbing my peace. Now, if you don't think I can handle you, try me. And I haven't been on this planet forever, but I've never seen a situation on a large scale, or never heard of one on a large scale of any significance throughout the history of the black male, because that's who I'm talking about, who didn't chicken out in a moment of real crisis. So I don't want to hear it in this stalwart Black History Month about that all-powerful black male, because I've seen our record, particularly in the last, I'll say, just in this area of the world, 60 years. Now, we've had a few who did things the way that they ought to be done. They protested in the street. They carried signs. They talked about non-justice. Martin Luther King, people like that. Fannie Lou Hamer, as a black female, backing up black males who got out there and tried to do something that made sense, rather than just terrorize the neighbors. And that's doing what we're supposed to do from the weak position that we have. Only time we show all this bravery is when we are mistreating other victims of racism. For the most part, some exceptions. Nelson Mandela, exception. Martin Luther King, exception. Malcolm X, exception. A substantial list, but well-spaced. Well-spaced. All those black males in between, usually the ones who are doing hard time, if you look at what they are charged with, most of it is mistreating, whether they're guilty or not, but most of it is for mistreating other prisoners of war, the race war, people that look like themselves, can't stand themselves and want to kill everything that looks like them, and laugh about it, and call it an accomplishment. Now, I harp on this because this is one thing that should be real passe. As they say in the hip-hop culture, I think they call it whack. That's really whack. I think that's what they call it. Makes no sense at all, and has been embraced in every generation. Didn't just start. As far back as I can remember. Black male carrying the Saturday night razor. I'm going to cut me somebody before the night's over. Oh yeah. Who you gonna cut? Who you gonna cut, Jimmy? Who you gonna cut, Mac? Well, I'm going over to the dance hall. Who's in the dance hall, Mac? I'm gonna cut me somebody who breaks bad over at the dance hall. Who is it that's gonna break bad in the dance hall, Mac? Somebody that looks like me. Somebody I probably went to school with before I dropped out, and they dropped out. So we meet up 18 years later, and we slash each other to death in the alley. And that's supposed to be a big deal and the purpose for being on the planet. Now, there are millions of black people who think just like that. And they are not all just in this area of the world. They are south of here, in places like Brazil. They look forward to that kind of foolishness. It's an old black tradition while we're talking about black history. That's a huge part of black culture. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop as of tonight. We need to do some thinking and just say enough of that. Been there, done that. Forget it. No more gang tattoos. I mean, who are we fooling? Who can we really whip? A very limited number of people. And certainly nobody who is smarter and more powerful than we are, particularly somebody who is really an army. A system of white supremacy. You know anything about taking that on? No, nothing, zero. Better start tap dancing.
Alrighty. Young Thug, one of the most loved by white people, black males who was on the mic. And when I read this code word for thug, all I could think about was Young Thug and just his noise. But yeah, I hope that this clip was constructive and a good tie-in to the thug ghetto glorification concepts that we have been led to participate in and celebrate now. It's it's really rampant in Area 3 disorder behavior. If you remember one of our earlier RIPS broadcasts, there's just so much death and destruction surrounding this noise making industry. And it's all because of black males and some black females have painted themselves and want to be considered thugs, gangsters, and all these things that we are not. And it's a devastating situation to be in, which is why counter racism is very, very important. And I hope this broadcast is an example of what codified thought, speech, and behavior is or can look like. And an example, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard to use one's thought, speech, and behavior to attempt to counter the system of racism, white supremacy. And I'll leave the mic open to see if folks like to chime in before closing comments.
Go ahead, Ray.
I was just going to say that I think the challenge of counter-racist science is, you see, with that clip you just played, 05, we're able to understand Neely Fuller in his simplicity, but we're able to understand the images and how it pertains to the message being conveyed. So I think that the challenge of counter-racist sciences is to get those to, understand the concept of counter-racism. That's the challenge. That's what I see the challenge to be, because the strength is going to lie in the numbers. So that's all I have to add.
Promoting counter racism and getting Black people to practice it is one hell of a job. So
specifically with thug life. That phrase makes me think of victim of racism, Tupac Shakur, who's no longer with us. In his efforts, he from what I understand, popularized that phrase to reclaim it, to turn it around and make it positive. But ultimately, the racist man, racist woman wouldn't let that happen, and it ultimately got him killed. I think there's a lot to be learned from that Black people still have not learned from, unfortunately. So while people are still going around glamorizing, what's the word I'm looking for? Glamorizing thug life and everything in between. Just need to remember that anybody who has been categorized as a thug or has been associated with thug life, that person is still a victim of racism, first and foremost. Prisoner of war. Glamorizing it didn't change that.
Is it incorrect to look at these so-called thugs as confused warriors?
I don't think, personally, I don't think so. I think, in order to combat the system of racism, white supremacy, I think we definitely will need, warriors, that are fighting.
So basically, there's nothing wrong with their aim. They just need to change the target.
I can agree with that.
Okay.
If you're a so-called gang member and you want to go out and kill someone, please let it be someone who is not Black, not a victim of white supremacy. Specifically, it should be someone who is a white supremacist. If one wants to kill and produce that sort of harm, let it not be against the people who are powerless and pitiful already. Because it's been enough of that. We got all people have no problem killing Black people. So that really needs to change. And I'm gonna answer your question as well. No, I don't think a person can be a warrior if they're not aware of who their enemy is. If they're not aware of who they should be warring with. Because white people are not confused about who they are warring with. It's people who look just like me, just like Helen B. Closing comments. Would anyone like to begin?
I could go ahead and start. I had a picture that I just sent on WhatsApp. I'm not sure how to share it here, but I think it would be great to share it for the viewers. But for my closing comment, if five of you would please help me out with that if you can. Closing comment for me, constructive business meeting as usual, race code war, understanding that there are a lot of coded messages, coded words. These words are unmistakably being associated with Black people. Oh, so that is a picture that I found in a restaurant. From what I know, these are all Black people, supposed to be Black people. I think the middle one is probably Tupac, supposed to be Tupac. The other one's supposed to be Snoop Dogg. So this is just how Black. I suspect a white person did this. This is how white people view this. So-called stuff. Yeah. So I thought that was relevant, but like I was saying, understanding that words are associated with us, or coded messages, coded words are being associated with Black people. In order to counter that, start practicing counter racism. Learn what the system of racism is, what the system of racism, white supremacy is, what it is, and how it works. Countering that, I suspect that would greatly alleviate all of the stress that Black people are feeling under the system, and more importantly, replace the system with justice as soon as possible. I'm looking forward to the next business meeting.
Justice.
Go ahead.
Justice is inevitable. The black side of the chessboard will fortify itself. It's only a matter of time.
Thank you.
Excellent business meeting. Please, to everyone who's listening to this recording, ask yourself, is this constructive or non-constructive before you do any and everything, anything. Also, become more curious about so-called life. Ask questions that will help you, that will guide you, and read more. Thank you.
Yeah, I second everything that was said for the closing comments. This is only a tough business because there's so few of us. But once Black people understand why this system is in place and how cowardly white people are for needing such a system in place in the first place, once we understand that, that should give us some confidence to understand that the problem can be easily corrected. You know, we should not be afraid of white people. Yes, they have a history of being really, really terrifying with their thought, speech, and behavior. And they're still very effective and dangerous, but we need not fear anything, because if we understand what we're dealing with, we will understand what we're dealing with. So please, everyone, producejustice.com, counterracism.com, Black Talk Radio for Gus T. Renegades, Context of White Supremacy Program. There's so much information out there that will teach us what it means to be white, what it means to be racially classified as non-white, especially Black people. It seems like Black people are going to be the ones to get the wheels of justice turning. The so-called Asian people don't seem interested because they have been made the so-called model minority. So-called Latino people aren't going to do it because they have been just mixed up with so much confusion, and a lot of the time they don't even know if they're white or non-white. And all racial classifications have been trained to worship white and want to be amongst the white side, no matter the fact that they are treated as a non-white person. So it's going to be Black people who have been classified as Black to get the show up and running, and then the rest shall follow as they always do when large numbers of Black people do anything, even if it's stupid. White people or non-white people alike attempt to follow, mimic it, copy it. So once we get an effective number of Black people practicing counter racism, that too will be copied and mimicked and followed. So it lies on us to be the ones to do so, and we should be the ones doing so, because we are at the bottom. We experience the most mistreatment, the most harm 24/7. And we should be more than sick and tired of this reality. We should want something greater than this system of white supremacy. But Evolution is for Justice. I don't know if you're available to share a closing comment, but if you would like to, please do so. Alrighty, I'm going to take that as unavailable. Ray, would you like to chime in again? I see your...
Yes, I just wanted to put out a quick suggestion. Producejustice.com. I would suggest buying multiple copies of the code book.
Agreed. And start with your so-called friends and see if you really have friends. Start with your so-called family to see if you really have family, the people who should be wanting the best for you and themselves.
Producejustice.com, while Mr. Fuller is still in existence and in control of his works.
Correct. All right, thanks everyone for this really, really stellar and informative broadcast. Thank the chat for just tons of constructive information here and conversations from Still Learning, Drink Water, Rate This Record, Akichi, Henry. Yeah, I really appreciate the audience. Please share the content, the information, so Black people will begin to improve and correct the damage that has been enacted against us for too long. And when the broadcast is uploaded, please like and share that one as well. But CRWS signing out. Thank you everyone for their participation.